Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today I'm back to working on some of these cane mills that I am working on restoring. This is a Chattanooga cane mill that I'm restoring for a viewer customer. And we'd started on these a while back with these rollers where we had to weld up the ends to basically take all the pitting and all the rust and everything that had just eat into them out. And I had already gotten one side of these two rollers turned down. I did two other ones for another cane mill, and I got those completely done. But I had to go back and re-weld up some more on the tops of these, and I never did get back to finishing those out. Today's goal is I want to get these journals all turned, and then I've got the bearing caps or bearing pieces that will go on here, and these have to have Babbitt bearings poured for them. So we're going to get over to the lathe, get this turned out, and then hopefully get some Babbitt poured and get these rollers ready to reinstall back on that cane mill. I've got some work I got to do to the big roller before I can totally reassemble things, but this needs to get done, so we're going to get her done today. Let's get over here on the lathe and turn these things out. All right, we are set up over here on the lathe, and we're going to come in here and just I'll start by just taking a pass down through here to kind of knock any high spots off. May not be touching everywhere through there. Whoops. All right, it's going to get a little bit larger down here in the bottom, I think. So if you don't follow the channel regularly or don't remember, in a previous video I had welded these up. So again, these were 4, 6, 8. Let me get this cut going. Previously, when we started on these rollers, these journals were very rusted and pitted from being out in the weather for years, and I needed to build them back up. So we just used the MIG welder and went around and around and around using a weld positioner and just built those surfaces up. So we actually were a little bit below size, but the new metal's all melted in there now, and we're going to turn this off and basically turn it down to the correct size. This is one way that you can build up on a shaft or a journal that has worn down over the years without having to totally remake everything. And in the case of these rollers, it'd be really difficult to remake. So anyway, that's kind of where we started from, and you can see it's just a process. We're just going to get these things turned down, and I'm going to make the tops and the bottom the same diameter, and we'll go from there. So anyway, just basic turning here, guys. We're going to turn that weld off and get it to size, and hopefully everything will clean up nice and smooth, and we'll have a good bearing journal for the Babbitt bearings to run in. All right, taking another 100 thousandths to cut on this pass. With that cleaned up, it's not totally cleaned up, pretty much. I want to get a measurement on this, and we are at 1 inch 227, 228. I'm gonna put that in my digital readout. Or excuse me, yeah, 2.028. And we are going to 1.9375, so we got a little less than 100 thousandths to come off of this. I'm going to dial in most of that. And then we'll come back with a light pass to clean it up here after this. So all right, we're going to cut it right there, and we'll make a light pass to finish it up. Confirm where we're at here. I'm just going to dial into my final dimension, which is going to be 1.9375, which is 1 15/16. This will just be a light pass here, kind of just finish things out. Hopefully we'll get a decent surface finish on that as well. All right, we are approaching the end here. I'm going to pull out on that. I don't want to drag my tool back across. That is the final finish. I do want to kind of clean that end up. Just going to a cutter that will kind of go up in that recess. It needs to drop down a little bit though. Should have that faced off nice. And I'm going to come in here and break this edge, put a nice little chamfer up there. That's good. And the final step is I'm just going to take some fine emery cloth. Since this is a bearing journal, I just want to make sure we got it nice and smooth. So we'll just take a minute and polish this out a little bit. That should work. And that should be it. That looks good. And just double check my diameter. We're right where we need to be. Good deal. So this one is knocked out. I'm going to put the other roller in here. We'll do the same thing, and we'll be ready to pour some Babbitt. So we're about ready to start pouring our Babbitt bearings. And what I've got is I just turned over on the lathe a mandrel that we're going to use to actually pour against rather than having to use the actual wheels. I've done it both ways. A lot of times I use the shaft that I'm going to be pouring Babbitt bearings against as the mandrel to actually pour on, particularly when it's an oddball size. In this case, all my shafts, I turn them to the same size. They're all 1 15/16, which is what the originals were. So to make life a little bit easier, I just turn a mandrel. This is a piece that's turned. It's actually just a little bit oversized, about 10 thousandths oversized. I found that when I make the bearings just a little bit oversized, when the bearings cool down and shrink, they get a little bit smaller, and then you have to scrape them out more to get them to fit really well. If you just make your mandrel about 10 thousandths oversized, in my experience, that just makes scraping them in and getting them fitted up right a little bit easier and quicker. So that's what we've got, is a dedicated mandrel to do this. And I've actually, I'm getting to where I'm doing a lot of these cane mills, so I'm going to save this mandrel. I actually stamped it, so I'll know that next time I need one this size, that I can just go pull this off the shelf and not have to make another one. And I think I'm going to start doing that for the different cane mills that I work on, because this seems to be repeating work that's coming into the shop. So anyway, we got that. I've just got it up on some V-blocks to kind of get it where it's parallel to my table. And then I've got my actual bearing pieces here. Now, one thing I'll comment on these bearing blocks that we're going to be pouring is these were for a Chattanooga plow company cane mill. They originally had bronze inserts, and I've mentioned this before. Back in the day when Chattanooga was still in business, it was a really nice feature because you could just call them up and order new inserts when you needed new bearings. You knock the old ones out, you press the new ones in, boom, you're ready to go. Problem is that company is long out of business, and it would be a bit of a pain to have to make inserts that will fit this just right, because there's tapers and all kinds of crazy stuff going on with those. So we're just going to pour Babbitt in them to replace them. And most cane mills that I deal with have Babbitt bearings instead of bronze bearings, and they hold up just fine. The nice thing about Babbitt is you can't just order it in a catalog, but it's easy to just melt this stuff out and re-pour it. But I did make a couple little modifications. I took a grinder and kind of ground out the top opening up here where that piece fit into, just give me a little bit clearance, some place to pour the bearing material into. I also drilled a couple little holes, not all the way through, but just little indentations into the casting. And what that does is when the molten Babbitt goes in here, these are just little keys that will prevent that bearing from sliding out or twisting in the shell. With the lips up here, it's not going to twist out, but it could slide out of that taper theoretically. But with these keys in there, it's going to stay put. Now, with this setup, I'm basically just putting a shim up underneath here. I've already kind of figured out what I need. And when you do that, the height of the bearing is pretty much right where I want it when I do this. I am going to have to put my damming material on here to keep the Babbitt from pouring out. And we'll heat these up and pour the bearings. This should be fairly quick and easy once we get started. So let me go ahead and I think what I'm going to do first is we'll smoke this shaft. I typically like to just soot it up with some carbon. That again helps it release a little bit better. And then we'll put these in here, get the Babbitt right on them, heat them up, and get the Babbitt going. All right, here we go. We're going to start by blackening the shaft. And again, I'm just putting carbon soot on this. Just got my torch going without any, just the acetylene, no oxygen here, and it just makes a black sooty surface, and that's going to give me the release agent that I need on this shaft. We'll take our bearing shell, kind of work it up underneath here, and got a nice little gap on the top, kind of get it lined up. I've already got my height set. And now we're going to take our damming material. This is a Deacon mold pack is what this particular stuff is. It's just a heat resistant putty-like material that will dam the ends of this thing up to keep the molten Babbitt from coming out. Because right now if I were to pour this bearing, there's nothing to keep the Babbitt in there. It's just like water. It's going to pour out all over the place. So we'll dam it up on the ends to capture it in there to give us a nice well to hold everything in. So I'll just take some of this material and we'll go ahead and start kind of getting it in place here. And I'm just going to this is about like Play-Doh. Just going to position it. It'll mold to whatever you want it to mold to. So we're going to just kind of put some up underneath it to kind of support it. Put it up tight against the shaft and up against the bearing shell. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. And if we got a nice tight fit, no Babbitt will run everywhere. If it's got the least little hole in it, it's going to go all over the place. Roll some out here, kind of put it up underneath it, and again just kind of mold it in place. All right, hopefully that looks pretty good. It's centered up pretty good. So now we're going to put some heat into this. So I'm just going to take my torch and I want to put a little bit of a preheat onto the whole thing. You want it to be probably 300 degrees, 400 degrees. Babbitt melts, around 600-700 degrees. You just want to have it where it's when you pour it in there, it's not going to cool real fast. We don't want it to chill real fast. We want it to flow freely all the way around that shaft and then cool in place and cast itself to the shape. If our shaft and our bearing shell is cold, it will cool faster and you may not get an even pour all the way around. So you'll see the damming material, it's not supposed to burn, but when you put the heat of a torch on it, you'll get a little bit. It just blows right out though. But anyway, we're just going to put a little heat in here. Let me get these preheated and we'll make our first pour. I'm using a tin-based Babbitt here, guys. Has no lead in it for safety reasons. And we're pouring out. We don't have a good seal. I'm going to have to redo it. All right, I'll pull this apart, repack everything, and we'll make another attempt here. But obviously it didn't seal up like we needed to. And this stuff that's in the bottom, we'll just remelt it. No big deal. See what happens this time. Pouring out again. All right, I'm gonna have to rethink something here. All right, guys, I took the time to do this right. Should have done it from the beginning. I was trying to take shortcuts and just use the Babbitt right from my damming material, and I'm still going to use the damming material on here, but I went over to the lathe and I just made a couple of rings that just fit up on this shaft. And what this will allow me to do now is come in here and I can slide these up on the ends, and I've got a dam pretty much already built to hold that in. I'm still going to have to seal it up with the compound, but this is going to have a physical dam in there kind of protecting it. It's also going to make the tops and bottom of my Babbitt just look a little bit neater. And yeah, I should have done this just to begin with, but again, I was being lazy. But now that I got these made, these rings will stay with this mandrel. And next time I need to do one this size, I'll have the rings and everything ready to go. I use rings like this commonly, but sometimes I just try to cheat, and most of the time I get away with it, but not today. All right, let's get some damming material back in there again, and hopefully second try here will go better. So we'll put this in here, kind of get up underneath that. All right, that looks a lot more promising. I will get my Babbitt pour going here, and we'll see if we can get this one done. So I'm going to put a little bit more over here. I melt my Babbitt over here just on a little camp stove, and this is still melting right now. I still got a chunk down in there. But as it melts, you'll get a little bit of dross up on the top. I usually just kind of skim it all to one side and just take it out. So we'll let that get at the right temperature to melt. It'll take a few more minutes here. And typically whenever I put like a paint stick here, a pine stick, they say when you put it in there and you pull it out and it kind of is smoking, you're at melting temperature. You're at the right temperature to pour. We still got a little ways to go. We'll get this to the right temperature and let it roll. And I think I mentioned before, but this is a tin-based Babbitt that we're using. Babbitt comes, and you can get it either lead-based or tin-based. The lead-based is a lot cheaper. The tin-based is more expensive, but I like using the tin-based Babbitt on these cane mills because it is making a food-grade product, and the tin is safe to be around. There's no lead in this particular alloy, whereas the lead-based alloys, you could potentially contaminate your product with lead from the bearings. It's probably unlikely but possible. This way there's no possibility, and I just feel safer about that. And preheat our pieces here. That shaft was still pretty warm whenever I was messing with it a minute ago, but it's hot now. Our Babbitt's at pouring temperature. Our shell is there. Let's see if we get it this time. And that's the way it's supposed to happen right there. All right, we'll let that solidify and we'll knock that one out. And we'll get our next one set up. So, I mean, it's already pretty much solidified. It's not cool, obviously, but I can go ahead and pull this stuff off. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not going anywhere now. There we go. What happened there is it had come up a little bit over center probably and kind of wrapped around that shaft, so we'll have to kind of knock that out. But that's a good pour. I'm very happy with that. We'll get our next one set up over here now. So that was fairly easy. Once I had that ring made, that made all the difference. I was able to knock those other ones out in no time flat. It just almost became like production. Probably maybe 30, 45 minutes total to do the three once I got the first one knocked out. I've got my little setup here. It's marked on the end what the size is. I'm just going to put this over with my Babbitt pouring supplies. And I've got a ready-made mandrel if I ever have to do that size again, and I probably will at some point. And I really like those rings to use as dams rather than trying to use the damming material. We still use damming material, but using the rings to do most of the blocking. All right, guys, I'm gonna let these cool down, and I'm gonna get in here and clean these up a little bit, get them all down flush. The top's kind of wrapped over just a little bit, so I need to put a little bevel on there just so that they will slide onto the bearing. And I think we'll have these knocked out. So we're gonna let them cool down and finish this job up. These are cooled down. I'm just gonna clean these up. So the area that kind of goes over the top here, I'm just gonna take a rasp file. This is like a horseshoer's rasp. It cuts this Babbitt, which is fairly soft metal, very quickly on the rasp side. And we'll just dress them right down. And I usually will go ahead and just kind of break these corners in here, put a little chamfer on them. That's a lot of times where they'll hang up if it kind of goes over the center line of the circle. So just bevel those out. I'm going to flip them up and we'll dress the ends. Using the little disc as a dam, you end up with some nice ends that don't require a whole lot of cleanup work. With the damming material only, sometimes you'll get a really ugly looking, won't be flat like that. And I'll just use a deburring tool to go around this and get a little chamfer on that outside edge. All right, flip it over to the other side. Kind of got into the casting there where the letters are, but no big deal. It's not going to hurt anything, and don't really need to have to see those. I'm just going to leave it like it is there, and we'll, again, just kind of chamfer this edge. Got a little cold shut right there in the edge, but no big deal. All right, that one is dressed out. I will do the other three. We'll go test them and do a little scraping on them if needed. So I'm over here, and these bearings, they fit pretty good. That one is maybe just at least a little bit tight. This one, for whatever reason, it is a little bit tight. So we are going to have to probably do a little bit of scraping on these two. So this is a Babbitt scraper. This little curved shape in the bottom is for doing circular patterns like this. You come in here and it's sharp enough that it will kind of cut that Babbitt and scrape it out. This works just like machine scraping, except right now I'm not using any kind of bluing or anything to see where the high spots are. I'm just kind of going at it blind. And a lot of times I find that if you just kind of work these bearings over a little bit right after you pour them, that they'll fit in. And the nice thing about Babbitt bearings is that, you know, you want them to turn easily when you put them on, whatever you're going to put them on, but they will kind of run in over time. That one's still just, I think we got a little bit of a bell shape up here in the top. It's not wanting to, it's like it's wrapping over the top of the shaft just at least a little bit. So I'm kind of opening up that top a little bit. And it's just a process. See, now that's fitting now. Still just a teeth a little bit tight, but a lot better than the other one. Like I said, I think it was just kind of wrapping over the top just enough to kind of catch it. And if we open that top up, it's probably just a little bit more. The Babbitt's going to fit just fine. All right. I think we're good. I've also got a couple of these bottom bearing cups to pour. These are a little bit different than the half shell ones. These ones actually have a cup that goes all the way around. And basically the shaft sits down inside this cup and you pour it on only one half of it. The back side is hollow, and that's just to give you some adjustment in here. And the reason that they're only half bearings is all the pressure. You got the cane coming through here. It's always pushing against just one side, so you really don't need it all the way around. Now to pour these, typically what I need to do is basically put the Babbitt right all back here in the back side of this hole, and so the metal doesn't go over there. We only want the Babbitt to go on this half here. So I've got some of the Babbitt right, or Deacon mold pack, I guess it is now, kind of pressed out flat here. I'm going to kind of just cut me a straight bottom, and this is just going to kind of wrap around in there. So I'm going to, again, I'm just using something to kind of mold it like I want. This is just going to fit in here like such. I need to figure out where I need to kind of do my other side, which is going to be about right there. Now I should be able to kind of put that down in there like such. And drop my shaft down in there and kind of press back. I just want to leave enough room in there for the bearing shell to kind of fill in. And the damming material is just going to take up space in the back and kind of keep the Babbitt from pouring around there. And that looks pretty good. So I'll go ahead and get this preheated, and we'll just pour that Babbitt, that layer of Babbitt there where that goes. Make sure that shaft is straight. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, I'm ready to get my Babbitt heated up and get this part heated up, and we'll be ready to pour that shell, and we'll do the same thing for the other one as well. Just using the same mandrel as we did a while ago. It's the same size Babbitt. So just put a little heat on it. Here we come with the Babbitt. Let that cool down for a few minutes, and we can take her out. There we go. That one is done. We'll do the same thing to the other one. Let me get the this Babbitt right, or the damming material out, and I'll set the other one up as well. Well, there we go. I think we've got everything, all the Babbitt bearings poured. So again, the cups go on the bottom of these shafts. You can see those are turning nice. The tops are turning nice. These two I went ahead and scraped to these journals, even though these will actually fit on the big gear, or not gear, but the big drum that I have still got to do. I've got to straighten the shaft and build up the journals and turn it and all that, but it'll be the same size. So these should fit it, but we can always fine tune them and do a little more scraping to them if we need to. But these should fit just fine because all these journals all are the exact same size on this particular cane mill. So there we go. I liked how this is turning out. Get our other big roller finished up. As soon as I get my press done, I got to straighten that shaft. Like I said, we got to build up the pitted areas and turn it down and get everything running true. But the bearings, again, since we're pouring against a mandrel, these should fit just fine as long as I turn my shaft to the right diameter, which shouldn't be a problem. So there you go. Our Babbitts are done for this cane mill. And with that, this job is done, at least for today. Like I said, until we get our big roller finished up, we can't really finish this mill. But once that's done, like I said, the Babbitt's already poured. We're ready to assemble everything and be finished with this particular mill that I've been working on now for a while. And the big holdup now is getting my hydraulic press finished up and where I can use it, but it is very close. Hopefully within the next week, we'll be able to have that thing going and be able to finish this job up. Guys, with that, that is a wrap. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments are always greatly appreciated. They really help feed the algorithms over on YouTube to help my channel be discovered by more people. Big, huge thank you to all the supporters of the site through Patreon and PayPal, etc., who help out financially. It allows me to take the time that I could be doing work and do the videoing, the editing and all that, which more or less, my shop time, it doubles how long it takes me to do anything in the shop. And that's not even counting the editing time and so forth like that. So your contributions make it possible for me to be able to take that time and do that out here in the shop. And with that, guys, that is a wrap again. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.